Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent computer role-playing game. This week I'm taking a look at a strategy RPG from about a year ago. Developed by Six Eyes Studio and published by 1C Entertainment, Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark was released on Steam back in 2019 and is also available on a few other platforms. Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark is a classic turn-based tactical RPG in the vein of Final Fantasy Tactics and similar games, with a job system, crafting system, troop appearance customization, all set in a fantasy world. It uses an isometric tile-based presentation and allows learned job abilities to be mixed and matched in order to allow a certain degree of unit customization. Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark is set in a world where, ages ago, a group of heroes defeated a great beast. Doing so rendered them extremely long-lived, and they used their influence to create a council of immortals. These immortals sent out arbiters to keep their law and prevent the world from falling into chaos. Over the years, corruption began to set into that system. You play Kairi and her band of arbiters who get involved with the ascension of a new immortal. The gameplay consists of moving from tactical battle to tactical battle over the world through connected nodes, facing either scripted or random encounters, and then using your gains to develop your party. Between these battles, you can manage your party, interact with various events, or stop at towns to visit shops or build new characters at the guild. Let's take a look at the party management screen first. On the overworld, or before each battle, you can manage your party. Your roster is laid out on the camp screen, and you can select each character from the roster in turn, or enter into the crafting menu. Here you may review your characters, change their equipment, equip and learn different abilities, and change their class. Each character has some basic abilities. There are hit points that tell you how close the character is to death, MP that governs how often they can use their spells and abilities, then attack, which determines their attack power, defense that governs how much damage they take from physical attacks, mind power that impacts how effective their spells and many special abilities are, resistance that determines how well they resist special abilities, speed that helps determine their initiative in combat, and finally evasion that gives them a chance to evade attacks. Then there are the elemental resistances for all 6 elements: water, fire, acid, lightning, dark, and holy. Each character also has a movement rate that determines how many tiles that they can move during a turn, as well as a jump value that determines the difference in height that they can navigate between tiles. There is a crit rate as well. Characters may also accrue various immunities to debuffs and status effects based on class abilities and gear. Characters may equip up to 6 pieces of equipment, including a weapon, a shield, a helm, armor, and then 2 accessories, such as gloves, boots, rings, etc. These items may adjust the character's various stats, grant special resistances or immunities, or access to certain abilities. Characters may also equip various abilities from the jobs that they level up in. They may receive some primary abilities from their current class, then equip a secondary ability menu from one that they've already done. 2 passive abilities can be equipped as well, and a counter ability. Primary abilities basically give you access to spells and special attacks that are unlocked during leveling up in a particular class. You can equip a secondary ability from any class that you've gained levels in and unlock the abilities for. Counter abilities are automatically used when your character is attacked, while passive abilities, once equipped, are just active whenever. In order to learn abilities, you have to spend AP that you earn during combat. Each class your character has changed into accrues AP and levels independently. You only get earned AP in your currently active class, but you do get vicarious AP by participating in combat with other characters. Each class has a tree of abilities. These abilities may be active, passive, or otherwise. In order to access later tiers, one has to first select at least one ability from a prior tier. Each ability costs a certain number of AP to learn. Active abilities are added to the appropriate class menu, while passive and counter abilities should be equipped in the appropriate ability slots. As you unlock more and more levels of abilities, you may unlock different classes. At any time, you can change into a new class to begin to fill it out. There's about a dozen classes, give or take, most of which aren't available until you unlock various levels of prior classes. For instance, the Knight requires you to have a 3rd level mercenary, and then when you gain 5 levels in Knight, you can unlock an additional class after that. The camp menu also allows you to dismiss non-story characters if you have too many to keep track of. You may also access the crafting menu from the camp menu, which allows you to make items, gear, gadgets, badges, or check components. An interesting difference between Fell Seal and other similar tactical RPGs is that consumables are on a per-battle basis. Each battle, your consumables are in a shared use pool between all party members. You get a certain number of uses during each battle, and these are refreshed after the battle. The crafting menu is how you improve the number of uses rather than buying individual potions and the like. Outside of the camp menu, you can move from node to node along the map to individual locations. Individual location nodes can have a number of options when you get to them. Some of them contain mandatory story fights or events that happen immediately. Some occasionally contain optional events marked with an E that may expire if you do not go to them before a particular time. Once you've cleared a node, you may get the opportunity to patrol it, which puts you into a randomly generated fight using the same map at that location. The level range of the fight is indicated when you cursor over the location before you do patrol, and each location may have treasure chests within it, which can be opened at any time. Towns may allow you to visit a shop or a guild. Visiting the guild allows you to craft another party member, selecting a starting class, level, and customizing their appearance. Visiting a shop allows you to buy and sell gear, as well as to try and buy, which allows you to select new gear for a number of characters and then purchase it all at once. Finally, let's take a look at the combat system since it's such a big part of the game. Each time you enter combat, you may be given a quick cutscene if it's story-based, and then an objective, basically your victory conditions. You are then given a chance to view the map and deploy your characters. Deploying characters is done by placing characters from your roster into the highlighted starting tiles. Terrain varies from place to place and may include obstacles as well as slopes, water, etc. Tiles differ from one another by various heights, and a character must have a high enough jump stat to traverse between tiles of different heights. Water tiles can be used to drown characters, and enemies can actually push you in if you've got that option enabled. Only some characters can swim when they have that ability equipped. Once you've placed your characters, play then proceeds in turns. Characters are arranged by speed, and this turn order is displayed across the top of the screen. To the left of this is an indication of the terrain height of the selected terrain tile. Beneath this is the menu displaying the currently active characters' options. At the bottom left of the screen is the character's details card that shows their name, level, experience, as well as other stats. You can cursor over opposing characters to get a view of their stats as well. The lower right shows the various command hotkeys in case you forget. Each character's menu of options includes movement, a basic attack, any active class ability menus, using an item, and then ending their turn. During a turn, a character can take one move and then one action. If they decline moving or using an action before ending their turn, their next turn will come up faster. And at the end of their turn, they may select a facing. Movement is, of course, limited by the selected character's movement rate, while attacking range is limited by the equipped weapon. Selecting a character's active ability opens up another menu that displays their currently available active abilities which they've learned, each of which may have its own range, which may be reliant on their weapon. Abilities may also have different shapes as well, such as spells that affect everything in a cross pattern, or so on and so forth. The summary of the particular ability or spell will give an indication of what it does, its range, shape, as well as what it is resisted by. Attacks tend to do more damage against enemies when you attack them from the sides, and even more so when you attack them from behind, although area of effect spells tend not to do this. Once a character suffers all of their hit points and damage, they are eliminated from the fight and may only be brought back by items or spells. At the end of the combat, characters who are eliminated suffer an injury, even if they were later brought back during that same combat. These injuries do go away if the character successfully sits out of combat, but remain and may become worse if they are then deployed in subsequent combats while still injured. In the worst case, this may actually result in character death for non-storyline characters if that option is enabled. Combat is turn-based, of course, and proceeds until you are successful at the objective or eliminated. Performing actions during combat grants AP, and at the end you are given AP based on enemies slain, as well as certain bonuses. A combat map may have chests and other lootables, and if you don't get them, you can always patrol the area to try again. As far as graphics and sound go, the music and sound design is actually pretty good. I wouldn't say the soundtrack is absolutely outstanding, but it's pretty solid all in all and fitting of both the genre and the setting. The art design is a mix of cel-shaded sprites and illustrations. Your mileage may vary on this. It has a certain cartoony retro appeal without actually being retro, and while I appreciated the look of things, I can see where people who want a grittier look in their world would be a little bit disappointed. The UI is very reminiscent of similar games, going all the way back to Final Fantasy Tactics, so if you're comfortable with those sorts of layouts, Felseal's UI does a serviceable job of it, although I will suggest playing with a controller if you have one. Keyboard and mouse works just fine, but a controller really is more intuitive, especially if you've played these games in the past. I've brought up Final Fantasy Tactics a few times, and that's because the gameplay mechanics are very reminiscent of that game. If you're a fan of tactical strategy RPGs like that, Fell Seal seems to be an excellent entry into that genre. It is fairly well balanced, and the combat can be reasonably challenging without being utterly dependent on RNG, at least with the default settings. You can change that if you want. In that, the game does very well. I'm not entirely convinced, however, about the writing and the storyline. The writing is actually pretty decent from what I've seen, but the storyline follows what seems to be a reasonably linear structure, at least what I got to experience of it, and that may not appeal to everyone, although it is pretty par for the genre. It does allow some deviation from the simple set-piece battle to set-piece battle flow, but only in terms of grinding out prior maps and accomplishing a few alternate objectives along the way. Another thing I'll give praise for with regards to Fell Seal is the highly customizable difficulty. I brought it up a few times already, but there are a number of alternate difficulty settings and rules that you can set in options in order to make the game more or less challenging, beyond a simple one-size-fits-all difficulty slider, and I appreciate that degree of fine control. It may lend the game a little bit more replayability as a result. All in all, Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark is a solid entry into the tactical RPG genre, and while it wears its inspirations on its sleeve, it actually executes them very well. It doesn't add a lot, the battle-based item refresh aside, but it doesn't need to. It seems way more well-balanced and down-to-earth than some of the more over-the-top tactical RPGs that I'm personally a fan of, and Disgaea, I'm looking at you, so it does have a more classic feel to the game overall. I think it's actually reasonable for the price given, although if you can find it on sale, I definitely recommend picking it up for genre fans. There is an expansion available, Missions and Monsters, which gives the ability to recruit and tame monsters, grants new classes, new equipment, as well as new locations, and the ability to upgrade various Arbiters guilds and send recruits out on their own missions, which can be useful additions to the game overall. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave it off here. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark. As always, I'll put a link to where you can pick it up below. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye. And if you're still watching this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who have supported this channel via Patreon or direct donations throughout the years, without which this channel could not have lasted as long as it has. For those who are feeling particularly generous, you can still support my work through Patreon and now through Subscribestar as well, through the links in the description below.